We've all heard the adage, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You ever think about that, what it really means? I mean, I think most of us realize that from hearing that from time to time, the tip of the iceberg means that there's so much more to it, right? So when you think of an iceberg in the water, you see the tip. 90% of it is underneath the water, below the surface. You know, the same goes for human beings. What we see on the outside is just the surface. It's just that little bit, that small little 10%, if you will. What really makes us up as human beings is the 90%. That's our character. That's our values, the things we stand for. So what we do as a society so often is really backwards. We spend 10% of our life preparing for the 90% of our life, when really we need to spend 90% of our life preparing for 10, or maybe even 99% of our life preparing for the 1% of the time. You see, we can't let our character go undeveloped, because what people see, those are our gifts, our talents. Those are the things that are on the surface, right? What everyone says, oh look, he's a great painter, or she's an amazing musician, or a great business leader, or whatever it is. But that's really just that small 1 or more 10% or something like that. So we need to spend more time developing our character. And that's what I think about sometimes when I think of the tip of the iceberg, is that without that underneath support structure, it would just crumble. So think of that surface thing as your gifts and talents, that the underneath the water, that's our core values, that's our support, that's our foundation. And I want to tell you a little story. First I want to kind of remind you too that in that the things in life that make the biggest impact are rarely things we plan on. Okay, though it's way less than really 10% that makes the impact. It's really more like 1%, because there's so many things in this world that we plan on that you know, good ideas, good plans, but at the end of the day, it's what we don't plan on that usually makes the biggest impact. And I want to tell you the story of this young worship leader. He was about 17 years old. He was in a small church of like 30 people, and there was this older lady who came up to him and gave him a poem and said, hey, if you get a chance, I'd love for you to put music to this poem. Well, the teenage boy, I mean, he loved the lady and they had a relationship, but you know, he had plans. He wanted to write the greatest song ever to be written, things like that. So anyway, one day he's sitting at his piano and he's writing, and he's come across some writing block, and he comes across this poem. And so he thinks, okay, I'll put some music to it. So he puts it up on the piano, he starts playing, and he creates a song out of this poem. Well, he's really kind of excited about it because he didn't think it was even going to happen. And so a couple weeks go by, and at church he decides that he's going to sing a special song and play this song and not tell her. So he plays the song and she cries. You know, it's a really neat moment. And that's a big deal, right? So, you know, the character moment there is that he took the time to go ahead and do something like that for her. But the story continues. You see, a few years go by and the lady developed cancer. And so she was traveling out of state to get treatment, and she had been doing it repetitively for weeks on end. And the young man had gone off to another church and had heard about this, so he decided to record the song for her and send it to her. So he did that, he recorded it, sent it to her, and he got a letter back a few weeks later saying how much it blessed her to be able to hear this song again, and spoke life to her. Anyway, she made a recovery, and she spent years further on down her life. So, you know, 10, 15 years, I think it was, passed. And she finally passed away. And the young man didn't really think twice about it, but he did go to her funeral. And when he went to her funeral, he walked in and saw kids everywhere. Now, what was weird to him is that this was an older lady. So to see kids everywhere at a funeral for an older lady, and this place was packed, like 300-400 people. And so they begin to tell a story of a young man who took the time to write a song. He took the time to write a song for this lady. And as a result, she poured her life into young people. She thought this young man this young man took the time to pour a little bit of time into me. And she devoted the rest of her life to pour into younger people, pour into students. You see, this young man wanted to write a song that was going to change the world. What he did is he took somebody else's song, put a little time into it, and he changed her world. And when he did that, she changed the world. You see, the tip of the iceberg was the go off and write great music, but the core value was to speak into somebody else's life, to give unselfishly. And the end result was huge, huge impact. I want you to think about that as you process the rest of your life, that it's not the 90% or the 10% that matters, it's the 90.